Hello everyone, welcome back to Formula 1 in 2025. It's been a while, it's been a little while since Canada that we had a brilliant race. And now, we're back once again, just getting everything, all the final little bits set up here, as we've got a little bit of work to do in order to get that done. And then we'll be good to go. And we look pretty good to go. Now, we did miss FP1 and FP2. We missed all practice yesterday. Doesn't mean we still can't have a good stream today. We saw George Russell go fastest in FP1 with Verstappen, Piastri, Norris and Gasly be the top 5. Bortoleto up in 6th place with the 2 Williams, followed by Hamilton. And then it's Isaac Hadjar in P10, Antonelli down in 11th relative to their teammate, almost 6/10 away. And then there's Nico Hülkenberg. After that, Lance Stroll, Alonso, Lawson, Colapinto, Tsunoda, Bogdanovic, Ocon and Behrman. It's actually not Lando Norris, sorry, in P4. It was Alexander Dunn who joins the Formula 1 grid for the first time, the F2 Championship leader. Having a very good session for an FP1 driver. That's absolutely awesome to be up in P4 already in their first session. FP2, that was Lando Norris on top in their first session of the weekend. Then Oscar Piastri about a 10.5 away. Verstappen, Stroll, Leclerc in their first session P5. Russell in P6. Tsunoda having a much better session relative to previous performances, still a couple tenths away from their teammate, and it's Bortoleto again, high up the order. Alonso, Hamilton, Antonelli, Lawson, Hadjar, Pierre, Gasly, Ocon, Albon, Carlos Sainz in 17th, then it's Behrman, Hülkenberg and Colapinto. So Colapinto still struggling at the moment, having a difficult time with that Alpine car. Had a bit of a better time in the FP1 session relative to the other drivers, but still struggling on the Formula 1 grid in the Alpine car at this stage. We did have a few moments where, well, both Ferraris are involved. So one Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, a couple of offs in FP2, going to the gravel a couple times. Nothing damage-wise was really noted, I don't think. Not anything severe, at least. Maybe a little bit of scraping on the floor as the stones go underneath. But then we also saw Hamilton block Antonelli in the FP3 session, just sat right on the racing liner going over the hill. Antonelli a little bit shocked about what was going on. They managed to avoid them nicely and no one was hurt. Once again, we didn't see the session yesterday, but we are back at it now. 49 minutes on the clock. It's Verstappen, the only one, well, out of two to actually set a lap. And best lap 106, so fair way ahead of Colapinto. No one seems to be in a rush to really get any laps in for this session so far. As the two Alpines and Verstappen are the only ones currently sitting a lap. We don't know what Verstappen's tyre is, but they're going purple. Do they make it to the final corner and continue this lap, or if they backed off, I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully we can see a few leaving the pit lane. It does look like we will see a couple leaving the pit lane. Verstappen did not back off. They just didn't improve on their personal best in the final sector there, so they did set the faster lap time. Again, Gasly a second away, Colapinto 1.6. Ocon on their way out. It's actually Colapinto who went in and came straight back out. So we're getting a bit more population on the track. And we'll see what the pace is looking like. Softs for Ocon, it says right now, which is going to be a very interesting feature. Behrman also following their teammate with exactly the same run plan, it would suggest. Now, George Russell won in Canada last weekend. They also won last year here in Austria, almost to this day. In fact, 2 days from now. And although realistically, would they have won if the two cars ahead didn't crash? Probably not. But the fact is that they were there when it counted. And maybe they can do a similar thing this weekend. This is a circuit that suits Mercedes, though I'm not entirely sure. A lot hotter, temperature-wise. There are some bumps as well. That's what the Mercedes doesn't exactly like. They like a smooth surface. The bumps are definitely on the exit turn 3. But also there's some on turn 1. And then going down the hill and up the hill in the final sector can also be quite brutal as well. Nothing that the car can't handle. Miurasa in the Racing Bull garage, spending a lot of time in the garages at Racing Bull to try and keep their nose in Formula One, seeing if there's a seat that will become available at some point. It's their best bet at this stage, if you're not going to compete in, of course, Formula 2. But not always guaranteed that you will get a seat. Oscar Piastri did end up doing that after a year in the garage of Alpine, then moving to McLaren, but that was a bit of a different story because they were the champion. Well, Dragovic also was the champion before then sitting in the garage for Aston Martin for a while, but it seemed to be the case for a bit too long now. Lando Norris going quickly, purple in the middle sector, purple in the final, and it's enough in the first to make it count a bit more. A 16.5, pretty quick indeed. We've got Tsunoda 3.5 tenths away from their teammate, but still up in P3. And some tyre data still not available, so hopefully we can get that a little bit later into this session, because that would be quite frustrating not to see, realistically. Whether we will get that, though, is a different story. I'll try and find out if I can from visuals. Soft tyre for Lando Norris, hard for Max Verstappen, and for Yuki Tsunoda also the soft tyre. Some other drivers also have no data. That's Hulkenberg, who's currently on the soft tyre. So we got a few soft tyres on the cars right now, a few mediums, only one hard at the moment. And as we talk about that, I'm going to try and get some more information again available to try and speak a little bit more about the whole session. That's just happened last year here in Austria, a 105.685. So we've already beaten that. Of course, that was a sprint weekend last time around in Austria, so there was only one practice session. We're now in the third practice session immediately. For the LSI watch-alongs, we haven't seen any more than that. But if we go a little bit later into the weekend sprint qualifying, it was a 5.0690 for sprint Q1. So that's faster already. A 5.186, however, for SQ2, and then a 4.686 in SQ3. So there's still a long way to go to get to those times. That was a pole position in the end for Max Verstappen in the race. For the sprint, they did take that victory. Oscar Piastri jumped his teammate as well. In the qualifying session, a 5.3 in Q1, a 4.4 in Q2, and a 4.3 in Q3. Max Verstappen setting that one in the end, going absolutely rapidly. It was actually Carlos Sainz who went 5.263 in the Q1 session, so I think that was the fastest out of anyone at that point. But now we go back to practice one. So we have seen Alonso, Stroll and Verstappen all run the hards. Other than that, everybody's either run the mediums or the softs. And that's why we're getting a pretty quick grid, almost out the gates. 30 minutes, 38 minutes on the clock. So currently, as it stands, Lando Norris still tops the times. A 4.888 now, as we go even quicker. So that was a 4.5 in FP2 from Lando Norris as well. So we're almost at the FP2 session lap times. And relative to last year's qualifying time, we'll have a look at the qualifying because it's not a sprint weekend this weekend. A 4.314 was the pole time. So we could definitely beat that. That was from Max Verstappen. If Lando Norris has set a pretty quick lap time already, then we're probably going to go a few tenths quicker and probably get almost exactly the same as before. We'll be back later on with qualifying to see the cars go even quicker. So this is a very, very quick weekend. Lots of straights, not too many corners, 10 corners on the track, arguably 9. And that means that the track is a bit more extractable in a couple of the corners. You can focus a little bit more on the corners rather than having many of them to look at. And the lap's quick as well, so you can set multiple laps in a short period of time. Most out of almost any, except from Monaco, I guess. But that's just distance-wise. Time-wise, this is the shortest circuit that you can go to. And that's why you get so much pace in the cars. Just trying to sort out some sync issues, so we'll be back to normal running very, very soon. We'll be back in a second. Now we're back with the sync issues all sorted. And I'm not talking about bathroom sync, I'm talking about timing sync. S-Y-N-C. I think that's how you spell it. Pretty sure. Charles Leclerc having a few moments it seems, so going into the pit lane to try and sort whatever issues they may need to try and get sorted. Hamilton up to P2, almost 4 tenths away from the top time of Norris. Piastri 1.5 tenths away from Hamilton, half a second away from their teammate, the championship leader. Of course, getting a lot of points over Lando Norris last weekend. But they've still got to try and keep their momentum up. They did get that overtake done in the sprint race this time last year, which was a brilliant, brilliant move. A well-spotted opportunity. Took full advantage. So it could happen again, but in the race, Norris had the pace. Just not quite able to get past Max Verstappen in the end. And we got Tsunoda, Verstappen, Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, the Saubers having a great session so far. Sainz in P8, Leclerc down in P9, not enjoying it. Going down to P10 as Albon gets nice and close to his teammate in P9. It's Behrman in 11, Russell, who's not having the best of times since being fastest in FP1. Then Alonso, Gasly, Lawson, Stroll, Antonelli, Hadjar, Ocon and Colapinto, who I believe has a contract extension at Alpine and will be continuing in the car. Good news for them, as they did have a pretty good session, I think, in Canada. A pretty good qualifying session for sure. And they managed to destroy their teammates' time. But I just want to double check what happened in Canada position-wise. 13th for Colapinto. And Gasly finishing 15th. So they did just about finish ahead. Maintained that, so getting their best result in the Alpine car, 13th place. Can they try and get some points at some point soon for the team? Colapinto hasn't been the star that maybe the Alpine squad were looking for. "27 minutes on the clock, just over halfway done on the session now. And we've got a mix on the grid. We've just seen Russell and Antonelli get their lap times up, Leclerc as well. So the top four teams have definitely kind of done what we would have expected from them. McLaren still expected to be the fastest car of the weekend. as voted by the chat as well, but also from my general speculation. Hamilton and Ferrari are definitely surprisingly second at the moment. Russell seemed to have struggled. I thought the Red Bulls would have been maybe a little bit quicker this weekend. Generally, a very strong circuit for Max Verstappen. And I'm sure they'll be able to do something about it. There's 27 minutes to go, 26 minutes to go, so they're going to have plenty of time to get something done. It is the Red Bull Ring after all. And you can never count Verstappen out of it. 5 wins in their career, most of anyone around the Red Bull Ring. It used to be called the A1 Ring. And I think there was another name for it, but I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. Albon up to P6, pushing down Tsunoda, Antonelli and Verstappen. That puts Hülkenberg just out of the top 10, behind their teammate Bortoleto. Carlos Sainz now not setting any improvements, goes down to P12. Colapinto stays at the back. Medium tyres being run by quite a few drivers, but a lot is done on the softs at this stage of the session. And we've got Leclerc coming out on some old tyres. According to the track data, looks like that Mercedes is pretty quick in a straight line relative to the Ferrari at least. In the corners, not so much. So maybe the Brackley-based team has ended up using a bit of a lower downforce setup. Now, I want to talk about the championship a little bit. Oscar Piastri, 22 points ahead of Lando Norris. I believe the biggest points gap that a driver's ever brought back in the championship was Sebastian Vettel, with I think 39 points. "39 points away by, I think it was either 9 or 7 races to go in the season. We're about just before the halfway mark of the season. Before we go to Silverstone, that's where the halfway mark of the season will come about. And that's still enough races for Lando Norris to try and bring something back, but they do have to work hard at it, because 22 points historically is pretty hard to claw back. Oscar Piastri goes off on the exit of turn 8, or sorry, turn 9 into turn 10. Goes straight into the pit lane to get the floor checked out as they went all over the curb, into the gravel a little bit, almost lost the car completely. Sebastian Vettel did that in 2019. But they didn't crash, they just went off into the runoff at turn 10. George Russell going purple in the first sector at the moment, looking quick. As we saw, relative to the Ferrari, they are pretty fast in a straight line, it seems. Into turn 4. They should be pretty quick through there as well. But it's the middle, or the middle sector that they lose a bit of time in the corners relative to the rest of the field, it seems. Seems pretty smooth. Green in the middle sector, however, a 10th up on their previous time. I think they'll probably end up in P3 for this one. Final sector, once again, looks tidy. What's it going to be for the Brit? Up to P2. They get the job done. Lovely stuff in the end. A 10th away from Lando Norris. Purple in that first sector, but not quite in the final 2. Will that first sector be the sector that makes the difference in the race, though? The one that you can overtake at. If they can hold on to DRS, as you get DRS on lap 2 already, then maybe they can get some overtakes done if they're faster than the other cars. Currently, FP3, part firme isn't a thing. You can still do setup changes, so they could try and dial things up a little bit on the downforce. Other teams can try and dial things down. Generally, setups are done in simulators before the weekend, and then you can make some slight tweaks after that. Whether they'll make those tweaks or not, I don't know. But so far, so good, as they look pretty quick. Antonelli recently just jumped behind George Russell, a 5.053, almost into the 4-second margin, as Russell did as well. Very close to one another. That's a bit scary for George Russell, especially considering the rumours of Max Verstappen being in talks. Mercedes not currently signing a new contract with George Russell. As of course, the 4-time world champion is going to be hot property when it comes to doing something with a signing. And I think George Russell understands that completely, although slightly frustrated after their dedication to Mercedes since probably 2017, I think it must have been. I do actually want to have a quick look at the championship leaderboard. So I'm going to get that up on the screen now. And we'll see what is going on with everybody. First of all, drivers. We already spoke about Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Well, Max Verstappen definitely made some good ground on both of the McLarens, but still a long way away. George Russell not too far away now from Verstappen as they gained about 5 points. No, 7 points on the Dutchman after they won the race, and Max Verstappen finished in second place. Charles Leclerc, P3. In P5, sorry, in the championship at the moment. 104 points, the final driver to be in the 100-point margin, as Lewis Hamilton is 79 points, followed by Antonelli, 63, making some good progress on the Brit as they got their first ever podium, which was a brilliant feature. It's Albon in 8th, 42 points, 22 for Ocon and Hadjar. That's a yellow flag as we talk about this one. So not entirely sure whether that is. Just a moment's yellow flag and then immediately cleared, so nothing to worry about. McLaren 374 points to their name, 199 points to Mercedes. That's a huge advantage that McLaren have, and I think they've maybe already run away with it for now. Zone 3 disabled, DRS immediately enabled once again. And we go back to the standings. Ferrari, they have 183 points, very close between them and Mercedes. Red Bull Racing and Max Verstappen, 162 points currently. I'm not entirely sure how many points Yuki Tsunoda scored for Red Bull Racing. I think it's 3 or 4. Maybe I'm being a little bit short of that one. I do apologise if I am. But Max Verstappen currently being a crucial driver. That is someone into the gravel. I just want to see who that was. It's a Racing Bull on the exit of the final corner. Very lucky to keep that one out, Hadjar. Just lazy on the exit and just went straight into the gravel. Easy to get wrong. And very hard to save. We've now got 1 vote for Mercedes in the who will be fastest chat, or poll, which is interesting. Not a bad idea. Anyway, we go back to the standings. 55 points for Williams. It would have been Red Bull Racing in last place if it wasn't for Max Verstappen. That's what I was trying to make the point at. Haas, 28 points, equal with Racing Bull, so a fierce battle between those guys. 22 points with Aston Martin, as there's been fluctuation of points finally scored for the team. And they're now really making a fight for it. It's Sauber, P9 with 20 points. They're very close to Aston Martin, a hell of a battle. Alpine scoring some recent points with 11 points to their name now, 11 points to their championship. Much better than it was before, but still currently in last place. We are absolutely minute seconds away of beating the Q3 time from last year. It's a 4.3 4.14 from Max Verstappen, relative to what we currently have, a 4.324 from Lando Norris. Absolutely tiny margins, almost got there. Lando Norris, the only driver to be in the 4-second lap time status, 11 minutes on the clock. Lots of drivers on the soft tyres, and Lando Norris almost 7 tenths ahead of George Russell in second place. Piastri going purple in the first sector though, green in the middle, and enjoying this lap. There's Piastri up to P2 now. Didn't quite get there to their teammate, but a 4.4. Second driver into the 4-second lap times. Albon improves to P11. Almost a second away from the current fastest time. Lawson's up to P9. They've made some good progress. Bortoleto splits from his teammate up in P8, staying in the top 10. As Hulkenberg's now gone down to P14. Stroll P5 and Tsunoda P6. Which is good news for both of those guys with their more experienced and more championship-full teammates. Going down into P14-16 with Alonso Verstappen. Carlos Sainz leaving the track. Also Verstappen on his way out to get onto the circuit. Currently, without the McLarens, looking at the grid, it's very competitive. Lawson and Bortoleto setting exactly the same lap time. But yeah, the grid is really competitive, taking away the McLarens. Adjar and Colapinto struggling with Gasly as well. Take away those guys, and P17 to P3 is very close. Qualifying is going to be very pushy and shovey, I'm sure. And traffic can be brutal in the Red Bull Ring circuit. We've seen in the past very dangerous blocking habits come around. And the drivers have to be very careful of that, not only to not block other cars, but also be ready to avoid them. Because you travel so quickly around this circuit. Not really that many slow speed corners. Well, there are a few, but you're heavy braking into them. The final sector will be brutal. Riding the curbs in Austria, currently crucial for these cars. Would you want to do that in the F1 game? Not quite sure. Few you want to try and avoid. Curbs do look pretty thin. Turn 7 and 8. Pretty thin in the F1 game at turn 7, but turn 8, I believe they're quite thick still. So I'm sure they'll correct that one day. There's Verstappen up to P3 though. Pushing down their teammate. Looking at Verstappen's lap time, very, very close. Well, a lot closer to the McLarens now. Leclerc's also actually gone pretty close to the McLarens as well. So they've made some good progress. Hamilton making good progress as well. And making it seem a lot less daunting to the Formula One viewers who really don't want severe domination. They don't mind McLaren winning, I'm sure, but they just want a good race. That's all really. It was Lando Norris who had a bit of a moment at turn 3 there. They managed to keep it off of the runoff for too long and get back onto track. Six minutes on the clock. Let's try and do a prediction for the top 3 in quali. Actually, the top 5. I'm going to go risky. I'm going to go Norris P1, Piastri P2, Verstappen P3, Leclerc and Russell. Very, very risky. I don't think anyone was expecting those predictions. Lando Norris looking for their first pole position themselves, but also according to my calculations or predictions. Not really calculations, are they? Will we see any cars be improving? Well, I'm sure Hadjar was hoping to go a little bit quicker, get a bit closer to their teammate, but they've had a few offs, so maybe they've lost their confidence in this session. I'm not entirely sure. Really lots of running being done by Verstappen, 24 laps, most of anyone. 14 laps only for Antonelli, 15 for Hadjar, so Hadjar really having a few issues. That's a yellow flag. There's a few cars maybe backing off. That's in the first sector, Bortoletto. Hopefully we can understand why that is. It's a green flag, nothing too much. We'll probably get some sort of understanding. Antonelli almost dropping it at the final corner as they were trying to go quickly, but they just lost it all in that final bit. A 5.1 was their last lap time, so if they hadn't made that mistake, who knows where they would have ended up. Well, definitely ahead of their teammate and a lot closer to the Ferraris. Not entirely sure how close to the Ferraris, if ahead of them, they would have been. But just dipping a wheel into the gravel isn't where you're going to gain lap time, unfortunately. Verstappen getting in the way of Gasly in the final corner, and the traffic is definitely real. As I said, it's going to be brutal in that final sector especially. We actually saw Verstappen and Hamilton a few years ago have a bit of a scuffle as they blocked one another by accident and then blocked again. It was actually Tsunoda causing the yellow flag at the first corner, spinning on the exit turn 1. Oh yeah, and I forgot about that one. Verstappen actually running a different engine here due to GP not being able to make it due to whatever reason. So we've got Daniel Ricciardo's old race engineer from Red Bull in for Max Verstappen. So listen out for that good old voice. A bit of a throwback to 2018. I don't think we saw Gasly run the same race engineer. I'm not entirely sure in 2019. Maybe Alex had them. I'm not entirely sure. Actually, I think they may have. Yeah, so I may be wrong. Not quite 2018 was their final season as a race engineer, active race engineer. Well, it definitely isn't because they're here in 2025. Verstappen going quickly, but losing it, spinning at the final corner there. That's why we've got the yellow flag. 20 seconds on the board. Everybody is pushing here at the final bit. We've got Hamilton improving, and so is Alonso. Another yellow. 10 seconds on the clock. The pushing is unreal, but we don't quite know what's going on because somebody binned it. It looks like there's just another spin on the exit of 3 here. Leclerc could have spun, but they decided to back off from the lap. Everybody's all good to go, and there isn't a full-on safety car. I think it was just maybe Colapinto or a Racing Bull who ended up off. Everybody out on track as the flag falls, and we see the cars cross the line to set their final lap times here in the Red Bull ring. It's Hamilton who went faster in the first sector, but didn't improve their overall lap in the end, backing off. And nobody is currently set to go faster. They've just put on their tyres that they want to do a practice start on. And that's the stuff for absolutely everybody except from Isaac Hadjar. And we're just going to let them all cross the line, and then we'll see how it is and go through the order. That's Colapinto, who was, yeah, at turn 3, losing the car. Actually going into the runoff, but backwards. And they would have probably forced a few drivers to back off on their lap times due to that yellow. Lasted for a little bit of a time as they had to try and find a spot to rejoin the circuit. That's all the cars gone over the line. It's Lando Norris with a 4.324 to go fastest here in the Red Bull ring and get very close to last year's pole time. It's Oscar Piastri in P2, Verstappen in P3, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell and Antonelli following each other. Then it's Stroll, Tsunoda in P9, Bortoletto finishing the top 10. Lawson in 11th, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Albon and Sainz following each other down in P14 and 15, not having the most confident boosting sessions of all time. Behrman in P16, Gasly, Ocon, Colapinto and Hadjar at the back of the pack. Colapinto setting a bit more of a representative pace towards the end, but Hadjar struggling. That's something to look out for the race. All the drivers do their practice starts, and we'll see you in a little while for qualifying. I cannot wait. It's going to be a good one. There's possibly going to be some traffic and some blocking and some drama and maybe some crashing if we see the cars go over the gravel a few too many times. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in a bit. Bye-bye.